This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. New habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto-renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Frances Helena, Townsville, Australia's founder and CEO of Beautifully Diverse Fashion, is shaking up sustainable fashion globally with a message of diversity and inclusivity. Beautifully Diverse Fashion empowers vulnerable individuals, domestic violence survivors, grieving families, cancer warriors, moms facing body shape discrimination, and providing employment to remote small businesses. They upcycle donated clothes, celebrating individuality and boosting confidence on global runway shows across the world, which include New York Fashion Week. They have been recognized across the globe in publications and platforms like Inspiring Lives magazine, Goal Setters, Getty Images, Noticias Hispanas, Cross Cultures Connections, Fireside, Phoenix 360, Spotify, BBC Manchester, Beauty NYC, with more to come. Frances, I'm so excited to welcome you to the show today, so welcome.
Hi, Miss Leslie. Thank you so much for having me. It's been ages actually since you and I connected, so I can't believe we're like here again. So yeah.
I know. Well, we're newly connected. I met you through another mutual connection and got reacquainted with you when you reached out to me on LinkedIn. And when I took a look at what you're doing now, probably I knew this already, but I kind of just had to have my memory refreshed. And I took a look at what you're doing and the work that you're currently involved in. I was really blown away by what you do and the people whose lives that you're impacting. And I knew that you'd be such a great addition, especially for this Women of Grace series for this month of March. And I'm just so glad that you said yes to be a guest. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have some questions for you. So we're just going to get started if you're okay with it.
Yes, no worries.
Okay. All right. Well, you're the founder and you're the CEO of Beautifully Diverse Fashion, a movement that is shaking up sustainable fashion globally, including the runways of New York Fashion Week. But before the runway, before the global recognition, something had to have sparked this. So can you take us back to the beginning and share what in your life did you witness that led you to create Beautifully Diverse Fashion, and why did this work call so deeply to you?
I think it was, now we're going back all the way. I'm trying to remember now. It was COVID actually. So there was just nothing to do. You know, everybody was trying to figure out what we're doing. There's a whole new change in the world. You know, obviously we're all stuck in our houses, and obviously this is globally, right? So I guess the whole world really had to figure out what to do and how to connect. And I think because of that, it's brought people like you and I who are now living in different countries as well. Like we're from other countries, but now live in other places. So, you know, it's been a real blessing in that sort of way. So I think when we started this, it was a neighbor of mine who said, oh, you know, this is what I used to do back in my home country because we just had nothing to do. So she said, "Oh, well, she used to take clothing that people didn't want and just upcycle it, turn it into bags and hair scrunchies, and she just basically sew them, and that's how she made extra cash." And so we said, "Oh, right, well, let's try it and see what happens." So it just really, I had no sewing experience, even though my mom sews, she does crochet, my grandma sews. So all my grandmas, they all do that sort of stuff, knitting, crochet, but it wasn't really a thing that I had picked up as a kid and everything. It used to annoy me as my mom used to sew my name into all my uniforms, and I'm like, why is this here? Why can't it just be a normal thing where you can just take the name off? But my clothes never got lost. So every time the teacher was like, "Oh, whose jumper is this?" they would actually, look and see the name and everything like that. So that's been a good thing. And so, yeah, this girl just taught me how to sew, just simple stuff. And I started playing around. I had actually moved from Townsville to the big city for more, I guess, fashion opportunity because I was doing some modeling in Townsville, was just my hometown. And so yeah, it was pretty much just doing that just for fun and then wanted to see. But then we went into lockdown. So when I moved, it was pretty much the start of lockdown again because it just sort of went on and off. And in the country town, it's pretty good. Like we didn't really have to worry about that because we're a smaller population. But coming to the big city, it sort of changed. And then, yeah, it sort of just really just took up from there, was just playing around with stuff. I didn't really think about selling stuff. It was just really word of mouth. But then someone I knew who was part of an Australian company. So the companies had merged into the US. And so they basically had a whole Facebook group and everything, and people were on it. And one girl was walking for New York Fashion Week. And so I said, "Oh, I always want to walk for New York Fashion Week." So we started talking, and then I was telling her what I do, and she said, "Oh, well, you create stuff, right? Why don't you apply for New York Fashion Week?" And I said, "Doing what? Like, I don't create anything. Like, I don't do anything." Because it was just this idea. Because when I was doing modeling in Brisbane, so lockdown had lifted a little bit, and you could go to some places and everything. But when I went to some places that had advertised anybody could just be a model, they didn't have anything in my size. A lot of the people were very tall, very skinny. And so it's a different body shape fit. And I just wasn't that. So that was sort of problematic. So I just had this idea to create something where we didn't limit the body size to get to basically one size. And so when we started doing this, because the friend that I became, and the new friend I became friends with that was walking for New York Fashion Week, she said, "Oh," she just kept bugging me about it. She's like, "Oh, you should apply for New York Fashion Week. You should apply." And I was like, no intention to apply, but she just wouldn't stop bugging me. And I said, "Okay, fine, I'll apply." So I just put this idea out there. So mind you, we have no inventory. We have just an idea, really. And so I think it was 24 hours later, I get a text message on WhatsApp. And then the person said, "Oh, I like your idea. It was really inspiring. Do you want to showcase?" And I said, "Showcase? What do I showcase?" And so I text my friend because she actually lives in New York. And I said, "Oh, so I applied and I got in." And she's like, "Really?" And I said, "What do you mean, really? You told me to apply." So then we had to think of like a whole thing on what to do. Like, I had no idea how to do this. And so I started doing research, and I was talking to my dad, and he said, "Oh, do your research and see what's already out there, see what you can make different." So I started doing this, and that's pretty much how it started, really. Just some crazy idea. And then it sort of just, we went and did this, but we didn't have a lot of fashion designers already have an inventory. They've been doing it for decades. So I had nothing. And we were like, "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to use?" So I had an idea just to use, people's clothing and just really recreate it, make it something new. So that's really how we sort of ended up doing this. But it's a lot of work. It's not as easy as people think to create stuff. You just don't just be like, "Oh, here it is and it's done." No, you actually have to think about it and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, we ended up by I think maybe 6 months later ended up out at New York Fashion Week. And we basically went from nothing to just this first show. And we were like, oh, okay. No idea what happened.
Well, I love that. I love the journey. I love the story. Like I said, I love what you do. But one of the things I know is like, so first of all, you serve the women you serve, domestic violence survivors, cancer warriors, grieving families, even mothers facing body shame. These are women who are carrying, I believe, some of the heaviest burdens imaginable. And I remember specifically one of your posts that stood out to me because it was a young woman whose life you truly impacted in such a profound way. This is the woman that ended up at, I believe she was walking in New York Fashion Week. And so, my question for you is what does it look like for you to meet a woman in that season of her life and help her to find the confidence and her voice again through something so personal as what she wears?
I think for me, because I lived as a child, I lived and traveled all over the world. So, my dad's actually white and my mom is Asian. And I say that because a lot of the time people, they're so culturally prejudiced within their own group. They don't step outside of their own group. And, don't get me wrong, both my parents remember, they're born in the 40s and 50s. So it was a very different time. My dad is originally from the UK, so he saw things like segregation. And my mom, growing up in Asia, you're sort of taught to be, the lighter skin you are, you're more socially accepted, So my parents grew up with these sort of things. But because of my dad's job, he basically got a job which took us all around the world. He was one of the engineers for the Twin Towers, which is the KLCC in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So that at the time was what's the tallest building? That was 1997. Yeah. So he was basically part of that production and everything like that. And so from there, I mean, he basically, yeah, we ended up living in Mexico. We lived in China, Malaysia. And this is long before the whole social media phones and, how people travel now. It's completely different. It's not how it used to be where you had to interact. We didn't even have apps. You didn't have no Google Translate. You had to learn how to talk to people. And so going back to your question, the friend that I had, she studied here in Australia. She studied at my university. And so that's how we became friends. And so a lot of the people, so this is a country town. So it's not, it's small. It's definitely smaller than New York. It's not, it's one of those sort of things. I don't know how your city is because you're in Playa de Carmen, aren't you? Is it a country? Is it a kind of a country
So,
town or is it?
it's a city. We've got a little over 300,000, I believe.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, there you go. So we're probably, yeah, so it could be like that. But she's from the village type thing. So, it's really rural. And so a lot of international students, I don't know, I guess they're drawn to me or I'm drawn to them because I have an interest in culture, food, and, I just love learning about like other people's culture and I love food. So that's always a good thing. When you love food, it doesn't really matter what language people speak. And so we become friends over time and she was here on a scholarship and then she had to go back and then she ended up in this situation with her ex-husband and all that. So then and it was still during COVID. So this was COVID. And the thing with a lot of scholarships is that once you finish it, you have to go back. It's just part of the rules. And, so we had kept in touch with her. And then she sort of saw what we were doing. And she had never flown out to New York, but she'd never been out that way before. And neither had I. And she was like, oh, I'm going to come out and we're going to do this. And I said, oh, okay. And so so here we are, no idea what's going to happen. But we ended up recruiting a whole bunch of different people, men and women. So we had one lady, she's from Ohio. She's a single mom, but she's so good in business. Like she owns property, she runs a candle business, and she has a son. She's been to over 50 countries. We had a mom so their heritage is Filipino, but they migrated to Canada. She got a husband, two boys. She's a soccer mom. She runs a hotel, that sort of stuff. And then we had, photographers who were in their 60s. They're both men. They both lost someone close to them and turned their life into photography and everything like that. They were both working in a Fortune. One of them was working in a 500 Fortune company. And then the other one basically lost his son to a car accident. So, we started basically just recruiting people, just from the public, really. It was really just during COVID, it was really like you could jump on all these new Facebook groups. It was a safe group where you would talk to people and all that sort of thing. And so that's how we really sort of connected, because I started getting on all these different platforms. And mind you, it's a long time difference. So between the States and us, especially on the eastern side, it's 16, 17-hour time difference. So I first watched, it's called, what was it? Own Your Future Challenge with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. So this was like probably one of the first big, COVID things that sort of kicked off. And so this was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, my time. But I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this, see what happens. And it was really about encouraging people just to get out there and do things. It's like, okay, we've got this problem, but now we found a solution. So how can we make it better? And that was sort of the way we connected with all these other people, was really there was a problem where people were facing discrimination just because of the way we look, because the fashion industry is so very physical. And so, yeah, this friend of ours basically jumped on a plane from Africa, went all the way to America, did this thing. She wasn't even sure if she was even going to get on the stage. She'd been watching a lot of YouTube videos of skinny models. She's like, I don't know if I want to go on. And I'm like, you are here now. We did not fly 2 days across the planet for this. So you're going on if I have to push you out there. And so then she did this thing. And then all of a sudden we found out, another 24, 48 hours later, that she got voted favorite look by the production. So it was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it was just like a whole thing. We didn't even know how we were going to go on, because a lot of these are actually expensive to do, these runway shows, to participate. Like, it comes at a cost, but it includes photography, video. We got put on the billboard, that sort of thing. So it was and it was so good because the production company, they were very good to us. And so they also helped us. And that's, we had a few other people who put some money towards us doing this. We did some fundraising. And so, I don't know what happened backstage, but we didn't have enough cash. So all of a sudden something happened. Yeah. And they let us on. Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. So that's the one thing I wanted to lean into. I do know that the fashion industry has historically been one of the least inclusive spaces, especially for women. I felt like they've been a little bit more inclusive of like how men look on stage, other than how women look. So like, when I was much younger, I used to model myself. And I remember being in that industry, and it was all about, I can understand your friend looking at like the norm was this very rail thin woman, and she had to be like sky high tall. So like, 6 foot was not unheard of. You had to be 5'9" as the shortest model and be very, very skinny. And it was all about like the clothes had to just fall or drape on your body in a certain way that made it look, as far as they were concerned, the designers, that it was desirable walking down a runway. But for me, that wasn't, I didn't feel like that represented women at all, because it represented one woman, the woman that you were making the ideal that had to walk down the runway. But it didn't represent the woman who is really the woman who lives out in the real world. So my question, I guess, is like, what does true inclusivity for you look like on a global runway? What does it look like in practice for you? Because I know that you said you had so many different people that you recruited to bring on. Your friend, she was voted the best look, or the favorite look. But what, from your perspective, because like it has historically been a very challenging space to really kind of change the narrative. So what does that look like for you for true inclusivity?
Well, when we started, we had no inventory. So we had to think fast and figure out how we're going to do this. And, backstage, you have to sort of work with what you had. And, if you don't have as much sewing experience, like at the time when I started, I mean, I still don't have that much sewing experience. It's really just trial and error. So we didn't realize there was a certain way you have to put the clothes on, you have to do this, so you had to go to the makeup area. You had to be in all these places all at once while you're trying to make everything happen. And so I was in another section. We were still at hair and makeup, and the team, I get messages on my phone while we're trying to do this, and they said, "Oh, we need the clothes." So I basically had the suitcase of clothing. I didn't know that you're supposed to put the clothing there first and then go do hair and makeup. So then I get all these messages, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And we're like, "You know what? Wear whatever you feel like it." So basically, a lot of people had already brought what they already had in their suitcase. So we were like, "Okay, here, figure it out and we'll deal with it." So they ended up, wearing this, that, and the third. And so that's how we sort of really created that idea of to let people be inclusive, because we were also running out of time. Like they were like, "We're going to go on in another like 10, 15 minutes." And I'm like, "Oh my God, by the time I get there, it's going to take me like another how long?" And there's so many people backstage because there was, I think, three groups, our groups and another two people, but they decided to put us on first. I thought we were gonna be towards the end, but they were like, "No, you're going on first." We're like, "Ah, okay now." So we had no idea what we were doing. And so we're like, "Okay, we'll just go with it." So we just basically let people feel, as comfortable as they wanted to, because some things actually didn't fit some people because we were just working with what we had and we had no idea how to do any of this. And then the second show came, which was another 2 weeks later. And mind you, when you travel, you can only have a certain amount of luggage, right? Otherwise, you've got to pay
Mhm.
extra. So whatever we had left over from the previous show, we had kept in the suitcase. And then we were like, "Oh, what are we going to use?" So we basically had the idea of just saying to the models, "Pick whatever you want from the suitcase. You figure it out." So,
Mhm.
and that just saved me because I was like, "I don't know what we're gonna do. I have no idea." And we still didn't have any inventory another 2 weeks later, because a lot of the inventory that designers create is obviously it's made in advance. They've got a base, whereas I was traveling from across the world. It's a 2-day flight, so it was that sort of thing. So yeah, by the second show, basically a lot of the people just selected what was in the suitcase, and then they made it work, and it looked really good. Like, we had one girl, it was just a scarf, really, really nice scarf, and she just made it into, like, a top. I don't know, I don't even know what she did, but she just had this whole made it like a halter neck or whatever, and then one of the girls had, like, a long sleeve shirt, like, it was so long it could be a dress, but she tucked it in, tied a bow, and did X, Y, B, and Z, and then we were done. We were like, "Oh, okay." And then the pictures all come out. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that's what that looked like." So we had no idea what was happening because
No,
it
it
was
is. Yeah, it is a big
yeah.
production, right? Like it's a huge production. And I remember being backstage and yeah, there is hair, there's makeup, there's the clothing. I mean, there is a whole production. I want to get into like what you do, like what the company does. So you upcycle donated clothes, right? We've been talking about this, which means I think that every piece has a history, a story, a life before it arrives on the runway, before you take it and use it for whatever thing that you're going to use it for. So I want you to kind of give us an idea of like what that feels like to do that, like what that whole process is, and then how we can inspire people who are the women who are listening that if this is something that they want to do or something like even for themselves personally, like to think differently about the clothes that they donate and the impact that just that single act of donation can have on somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? We've taken a break, and I can't even believe it's been a couple of years now. Someone said to me this morning, "Oh, you've been away for 2 years." I said, "Really?" So, when we started this, it wasn't a thing. Since I've
Hmm.
been away. So Australia we're so far away. Like I said, it's a 2-day flight, but we're so far in terms of like, the market is really slow. A lot of the people are moving overseas for business opportunities, in the States, in the UK, Canada's picking up. And so now it's become a whole thing. Someone told me to get back on LinkedIn. I had the account, but I wasn't using it. So I've actually been tapping into people, and there's so much sustainability now, but people are actually thinking about how to upcycle clothing. And now Europe's taking a big toll where if you own a clothing business, especially the bigger brands, and you don't sell whatever's left over, you instead of donating it, you have to figure out a way how to get rid of that stock. Because what happens was people were basically, oh, we, sold for the winter season or whatever. So then they would get rid of all that stock. It goes to the charity shops, op shops, thrift shops, whatever people call it. But basically they were donating it all. And there's a problem in all these shops where people they spend their time going through it. And now it's become an issue where thrift shops and charity shops and all of that are becoming so expensive now. You can buy this just going to the store. Like I was doing some of this just looking around here in Australia and I was like, am I seeing that price? These things used to be between $2 to $5. Now it's nearly $30 for like an item and everything, which is crazy. And a lot of the times now, I think, and it's changed now where people are really thinking about, okay, what are we going to donate or what can we keep? And then you now get a lot of designers, like I think I think he's an American, but his name is Max. Everybody knows him. He's so cute. He's 9 years old, but he does high couture fashion, and everything he creates is all sustainable. So basically, he created something out of what are they? They're like little sacks. I think you can put potatoes in them or something like that. But basically, he created this whole thing out of it. So it's really now people are really starting to use their imagination a bit more. Even some of the bigger brands are now considering how it's made, whether the item is, you know, paying its people who make it uh, efficiently or better, not really better, but
Mhm.
better wages, that sort of thing. So people
Okay.
are now thinking about what it can do. I did a bit of research lately where one company was basically recycling its wetsuits. You just send it back for free and then you purchase a new one 20% off or whatever. So, people are really starting to think about how to do all these sorts of things. And it's crazy now. It's grown so much that there's even been things where there's clothing swaps. Women come together, they'd be like, oh, yeah, this is from my wardrobe. And so they basically just swap clothing. So it's saving the cost of people having to go to the shop. And it's not knocking back people going to the shop. It's just making people realize that there's other ways you can get items for free without having to spend so much because housing has gone up, food has gone up everywhere. It doesn't matter if you live in a developing country or not. Like it's just like everywhere's gone up just after COVID. So it's been a big change and it's been it's been a big surprise actually because when we started a couple of years ago, this was just not a thing. People like, oh, upcycle. What is that? Like, people had this weird idea until they started seeing what you actually can create and, what it does, the effect it has on people. So, yeah, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I love that. I think and I just checked him out. He's couture to the max. Yeah, 10 years old at New York Fashion or Paris Fashion Week. I was
Yeah,
looking.
she's adorable.
He's very talented. I'm just looking at some of the
Yes.
things he's creating. He's very talented for 9 years old. But I think that's amazing, or for 10 now. I think that's amazing that our younger generation is thinking outside the box of like what they actually want to do for their life, and becoming an entrepreneur at such a young age. Obviously, he probably has somebody in his life who's inspired him down that entrepreneurial journey. But I'm getting back to like what you were talking about, like with the clothing. You can find great items when you put your eye to it. But I think a lot of the time you're right. You go to these thrift stores, and I think now they're becoming more like as if you're almost buying something that you knew you would have paid that price new, but they're now trying to have these gently used items and recoup what they paid for it in full price. And I don't think that's right, but it just seems sometimes that that's what they're doing. But I love the fact that what you're doing, you're upcycling, and I think that's very cool. I think that gives it it gives it like a positive, a positive way of looking at donating our gently used goods to somebody else who could use that for something as incredible as New York Fashion Week, right? Having a suitcase full of clothing that your models put together their own outfits, which I always thought was fun to do. But being able to do that and going out on to the runway and just presenting, especially at New York Fashion Week, I think would be so fun. So, anyways, I want to get back to you for a minute because you did mention that you've been away for a couple of years. So, I'm curious of the why behind that because I know that you're running a global fashion movement. I feel you support vulnerable communities, you provide employment for remote small businesses, and you're showing up on international stages again, New York Fashion Week, going all the way, spending 2 days to travel to get to these events, I think is amazing, but I'm sure it can be a lot of energy expended to get there. So I want to know from you personally, for you, how do you replenish yourself when the weight of your work and the weight of the stories that you're carrying, especially when you have stories of people who have gone through the things that they've gone through, how that can feel heavy? And how do you manage that and be able to like still do what you do?
I think that's a really good question. I think for me, it's definitely been a learning journey because I'm not like a, professional. I think when you start a business, it's really all about trial and error. And my background is my parents didn't finish they didn't get to go to college. So, like I said, they were born in the 40s and 50s. So you had to have some money, even though, okay, it was a little cheaper, but not all families could afford to go to college back then. So my parents both finished high school and they weren't from wealthy families either. So when I started this, it was really using what you had because I was like, I cannot afford to go buy a new roll of fabric because a lot of the outfits that designers do make, you get rolls of fabric and it could be like a yard. It would be maybe like, 10.99 or 15.99, depending on what you are going to make. And, there's all different sorts of fabric, different style, all this sort of stuff. If you don't have that kind of money, like you sort of just had to use what you had. So it's sort of when we thought of this, it was really an idea to help not just me, but other people, because other people, they would be like, oh, I don't have time to clean out my closet. Like, some people are parents, some people are working, so when we put this idea out there to the public, so a lot of the donations we get are from the wider community, family and friends. But, people will be like, oh, well, I'm just cleaning out the closet. Do you want this? So now they've got this idea. And so they'll give it to me. But now sometimes it can be a little too much because we don't have space in the house. And it's not, and it's not like we're mass production. It's really creating one piece at a time. And you have to think about what you're going to create, really, because you're like just sitting there looking at a whole bunch of clothes going, oh, yeah, what that'll look all right. But you spend time cutting it up, you spend time sewing it. And sometimes it can take all day. You'll be doing this all day and it can be tiring. There's other things you might want to do. You might want to take a break. And so we took a break because we were getting I think we went from 0 to 100 real quick, which is good. We got published in Spanish and English, and then we were sort of seen all over the world type thing. And then we've had financial problems. I've had health problems. Like the second show I did, I had a endometriosis surgery. So if you don't know for those listening who don't know what endometriosis is, think of it as bubble gum. So it's like bubble gum that just sticks to your uterus and all this sort of stuff. So I was having those sort of issues, but they removed it at stage 3 and they took a cyst out. But it's basically just pain in your body, not just in the uterus, but it comes to the organs, to the back, that sort of stuff. So, and then the first show we did, I was actually getting evicted from my place. Literally, as we did this show in New York, I had to, we had to have a few other people helping me try to figure all this out. Because by the time I came home, I was couch surfing at my friend's place. So a lot of the time, it's just been go, 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 go. And I haven't really thought about what's next. It was sort of like, okay, we're going to do this, just make it happen, go see who we can connect with and do all that. And so by the time we got to London, because a lot of the continents are closer, the closest continent we've got is Asia, but that's not even close. It still takes a day or two, a day and a half to get to Asia. So, a lot of the continents like Europe and North America are closer together. You can just bounce across and all that sort of thing. But by the time we got to London, I was sleeping in a coffee shop, and I think mentally just couldn't do it anymore. Was running out of money. The currency between all the countries, when you convert it, you start running out of cash. And so I was sleeping in a coffee shop and working at the coffee shop. And the community was so good. They were helpful and all this sort of stuff. But I had some really good friends who managed to help me get back to Australia. And I've been in New York when I've had no money. And I was like, and that was kind of scary, because if you've ever been to New York without money, it's not the best place to be. It's like, it's really wild, and it's just, but I was lucky. I met some really good people that sort of helped me. But I think the biggest thing that happened to us is that we couldn't make London Fashion Week work. We were just not in the right frame of mind. We had paid for it, so we lost all that money. But mentally, it was like it's going to be another month. And I was staying at this coffee shop, and I was like, it's unfair to the people, who are running the coffee shop, even though we get up early, make up nice and clean and all this sort of stuff. But it's still their place of business. And I was sort of ready to go home. We actually got nominated for a couple of awards. But the biggest thing was, when it didn't work out, we ended up getting trolled by a few people. And I think, the downside about social media is that it's everywhere now. So you have to be careful what you say, what you write, whatever. And people will just, you find yourself arguing with people you don't even know on the internet for no particular reason, right? But, this particular person just kept commenting and commenting. And obviously, when we do productions, it's with other people. So working with other people is not as easy as people think. Everybody has different ideas, they have different experiences, and it's all he said, she said type of thing. And so, from my understanding, was that everybody that was doing London Fashion Week with us was going to walk in this show. So, and there's a time difference between us, about 10 hours between London and Australia, well, where I was in Australia. And so I found out that it was only one model that got to walk. So you could imagine the difficulty. It was like, well, I was told by this person that this happened, and, it was all that sort of stuff. And so it just got to the point where we just couldn't do it. And so, of course, that affected what we do. And obviously that was upsetting to the people that were wanting to do it. And so it became like a whole thing, so we've sort of had to take a step back and really reevaluate certain things, if we can do it financially. I mean, from our end, to get to the other side of the world, as a return, it can cost nearly up to $2,000. Now, we don't get paid as a designer, so that's sort of like a loss, even though we're showcasing and we get to meet new connections, meet new people, with the aim to eventually get paid one day for creating what we do and showcasing what we do. But that's not always the case. So it's sometimes it's that sort of thing. And then, of course, on top of the flights, you have the baggage. Sometimes, depending on what airline you go to, it can be maybe 30, 40 kilos. If you go over, you got to pay more. And then, of course, accommodation on top of that all adds up. And so, it's stuff like that, which a lot of people don't really realize or understand. They just see the good side of it and it's all done. But the extent that designers go to, I mean, if you've been in the business for a while, that's okay. But there's still things that you have to do to get it done. The production, like where are you going to store all your items and all that sort of stuff. So it's really a big job, actually. It's not a small job, and so we've had to really take a step back and really think about what we're going to do and where we're going to go. I mean, for us, traveling is no issue. I've been traveling since before I could walk and talk, really. It was a thing, but it's still costly no matter where you go. So it's really, yeah, really
Yeah.
a thing we're thinking about this year and what we're doing.
Well, I have to say what you built, what you're building, the work that you're doing, the people's lives who you've impacted, I think it's incredible what you've done. And so, what I want to say is that bravo, because I think it's very selfless when it comes to like you traveling and putting yourself out there, like you said, spending time in another country in a big city like New York, which is humongous, to being, having no money, but having people actually be there for you, reach out and be a part of everything and be able to help you, to ending up in London and maybe not having the experience that you wanted, but having again other kind-hearted souls to be able to support you as you're trying to figure things out. Honestly, I think that just comes down to the having that personality and that service-based mindset that it just rubs off on other people, and I think that's so great. So I have a final question for you because I think this is going to be important for women who are listening because again, this is for the Women of Grace series. Grace is for me, I think it's important. This is an important series to me as I talk to you about it on our coffee chat. It's really about like there are life's challenges, but it's how we show up to those challenges and not allowing them to stop us from living our lives. And I think that's really what you've proven is that no matter what life has thrown your way, you've managed to find a way to, okay, like this is what we're going to do. If that means taking a couple of years off to recuperate, to, like just reset, recalibrate, that's okay as well. I mean, you've got recognition. People already know who you are. They really love what you've done. And I feel like you're going to come back bigger and better. So, for the women who are listening, what do you want them to understand about what's possible when you build something that's deeply and unapologetically real?
I think the biggest lesson for me was really taking a step back. I had moments where and I still have those moments actually, where I'm like, oh, am I doing the right thing? It's not making any money. There's no money yet. And I've got, and you'll know those people in your corner, because I've got some people in my corner who aren't in my corner. They'll say, oh, why do you like to travel? Why don't you get a real job? Or like, what are you doing? Like, they have no idea what we're doing, but they follow you on social media, like they're watching. So they're sort of just nosy. When one thing Tyler Perry had always said he was having a conversation with Oprah and they were sort of talking about people will get on, you can put all these people on your boat, but you have to be careful because the people that get in your boat, they want to sink it. And I mean, a lot of the people we've had are still with us. We've got this amazing graphic designer, Ty, and his wife, Francisca, out in the remote part of the Caribbean, and they've been with us since day one. And we've been trying our hardest to make sure they stay afloat as well because the area of the Caribbean had been devastated by a hurricane before COVID, and then COVID just wiped it all out as well. So it was just, and then they've been with us forever, really. So we've been trying to put some money back into them and trying to do that. And I think the biggest thing about when you start a business or if it doesn't have to be a business, but whatever you're doing in your life, it's okay to step back and go, hey, I need to think about what I'm doing. It can't just be all about the people like it can be, but if as a leader, need to think about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then you can come back to the people. But make sure, I think the biggest thing is for us that we, despite all the different time differences, we still stay in contact with a lot of these people. We know we check up on them, see how they're going. And sometimes that's not easy because obviously, you want to help, but you can only do so much with what you have. And so, like you said, this year we're coming back. So we're definitely coming back to the runway. We've got a few things happening. And we've been thinking about what to do and how to do it. So, but we still haven't forgotten those people who helped us along the way. We're still in contact with them. Okay, yeah, financially it's not at the place we want it to be, but it's getting there. So it's that sort of thing. And you can look at all the most famous people on the planet and they'll tell you it took a long time to make a lot of money. It's not an overnight thing, but the real commitment is God is seeing if you can stay on the journey. Because if you fall off, well, that's okay. I mean, it's all right if it wasn't for you, but He wants to see how long you can stay on the journey to give you the reward. So, and I think that's the biggest thing. Not a lot of people can still stay and keep going because it really isn't for everybody. But we've been at this for a couple of years, so it's still going. I'm actually surprised it's still going. To be fair, I was like, oh, okay, but it's actually for me, it's really the reviews and I think the impact that it has on people. That feedback is actually helping me because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what are we doing? So just seeing what people think of it or how they felt after a show, I think, and it's really changed their career. We had one guy, he never done runway at all. He was acting and now he's on every billboard and now I can't even get a hold of him. I'm like, hello, where are you? But we still catch up. But it's stuff like that. And I mean, even though he's so busy, like we still manage to catch up all the time actually. So it's really about seeing the results and what it's doing for other people because at the end of this lifespan, we're not taking anything with us. It's really about contributing to society and what you can do in life and really making the most of it. So, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Frances, I have loved talking with you. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, for sharing from the heart, your mission, your incredible story behind beautifully diverse fashion. What you're building for me, to me, is so much bigger, so much more than just fashion. It's dignity, it's belonging, it's a reminder to everyone who's ever felt unseen, especially for women who've ever felt unseen, who felt discarded, who felt overlooked. Maybe she doesn't feel worthy. Maybe she doesn't feel that there's much worth of her taking up space. And so I have loved what you do. I've loved learning about what you do and that you are reminding the people that come and be a part of your world that you are worthy, that you are deserving. And so I just want to say I've loved every moment of this conversation. I know without a doubt that our listeners are going to feel it too. So again, thanks so much for spending time with me today and being a true woman of grace.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Leslie. And yes, and thank you to everybody listening. It's definitely been an experience and we'll keep sharing what we're doing.
Exactly. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Frances directly and learn more about beautifully diverse fashion and the incredible work she's doing globally, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, grace is not about having it all together. It's about showing up anyway, with your whole self, your whole story, and your whole heart. You are not too much, you are not too broken, and you're not too late to do the things in life that you've always dreamt of doing. You're exactly who this world needs, exactly as you are, exactly where you are, exactly who you are. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Hi, this is Jennifer Rizio. Are you ready to create more freedom in your life and your business? Join me and my amazing guest experts on Asked and Answered by Soul. where we discuss life, love, and business and provide you with the answers to those really big questions. Who are you, really? Why are you here? And what does it all mean? Tune in wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to share the magic with a friend.
For those of you who dream of a world where music and podcasts live together in perfect harmony, now, for the first time, Electricast gives you a magical compilation, Pod Till You Drop, Volume 1, where we give you the best in tunes and the best in podcasts. Feast your ears and hear the culture. Available now wherever you listen to music.
Electricast.